further on to our next level and make sure that Chris Kennedy becomes our next governor of Illinois. Now, I will request our beloved Congressman, who's been the backbone of our MEATF, along with our dynamic leader, Prabhaker. Both of them are the backbone. So let me request our Congressman to come here.
All right, let me thank you very much. We want to thank our chairman for the tremendous leadership that is indeed provided.
Thank you.
We also want to thank all of you, and I want to thank that kindergarten teacher. Because if it hadn't been for the kindergarten teacher, I may not have a dentist. So it is just so good to actually be here, and this reminds me so much of what America is and what America is about. America is about people believing that possibilities always exist and that change is no further than across the street away. It may take a while to get there, but this fellow Sam Cooke had a good rendition of it when he said that it may take a long time coming, but I know some change is going to come. And so when we have individuals who are willing to open their homes, open their places of business, open their places of worship, open their hearts to the possibilities of what that change can become, then we all gather, and every time I go someplace, I get to meet people that I didn't know. And I always say that no matter where you go and what you do, whoever you meet is just somebody new, and it's another friend that you've never met before. And so I want to thank you, Dr. Sowell, for opening up your business for all of us to come by. And it's so good that it's a health place, because the Kennedy family has done more for health care. And one of them in particular, that's Senator Ted Kennedy, who was actually, as far as I'm concerned, the real orchestrator of moving life expectancy. If you go back and look at what life expectancy was a few years ago and what it is now, it's the one area that many groups have made advances that they have not made even in other areas. I'm an African American, and there's never any shame in my game. I was brought here, my relatives were, in the holds of ships, not knowing where they were going, not knowing if they would in fact get there, what would happen to them if they did, but yet we've made it to this point. And we've made it with allies. We've made it with people who knew that when we combined our efforts, we could overcome the adversities that we face. And so that's why I guess I'm glad to be called a liberal in terms of my thinking, a liberal in terms of my politics, a liberal in terms of who I support. I always look for the most liberal, most progressive candidate that I can find every time I support somebody running for public office. And the most progressive candidate in this race, we don't have to wonder who it is. We know who it is. It's Chris Kennedy. It's Chris Kennedy. And all of those who are not analysts and, don't always follow every little thing that the analysts on television and what the reporters say, and the folks who make their living handicapping political races, let me tell you, Chris is in an excellent position to win. I go to church most Sundays, and we say a lot of things at church. And one of the things that people often say is that the good Lord works in mysterious ways, his wonders to behold, meaning that things will happen that will influence the direction of things. A month ago, the handicappers couldn't say what they can say today. And none of us had anything to do with the fact that J.B. and Rod Blagojevich had themselves a conversation, or that the FBI was taping the conversation. And lo and behold, somebody wants a Freedom of Information inquiry. And here it comes. All the things that were said. And that has offended a large number of people, not just African Americans. African Americans have certainly been offended, but there are lots of people who have been offended. Now the polls have the candidates all bunched up together. There are three of them. If this is the race, here's where they are. All three. Some folks believe that JB is just about tapped out. That he's already spent over $40 million on advertising and stuff like that. And that he is just about tapped out. As a matter of fact, he's been up and been sliding. And you know, it's hard to stop sliding, especially if you're going down a slippery slope. You know, it's hard. And so as he has been sliding, Biss and Chris are right there. And there are folks who feel that because Biss does not have the name recognition and is not the known entity, that a Kennedy name is known, that the greatest person who can benefit from all of this is Chris Kennedy. And so all we got to do for the next 30 days or so, or however many days they are, is really put the whip to the horse and keep raising the spectrum and let people know that where there is life, there is hope, and where there is hope, there is possibility. And Illinois has a chance now to get that governor that we really need to put some more pep in our step. So I'm glad to be here with all of you. Thank all of you again. And Dr. Sowell, I guess I'll be making my appointment. Thank you.
Kennedy, and I'm Christopher Kennedy's brother, and I'm really grateful to be here. And it's such an amazing opportunity to hear Danny Davis speak, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so good to see Gerard here. Are we? Can you guys hear me back there, or should I shout? Is this working? This is working. Okay. I'm just going to shout. Okay. So, Doctor, thank you so much for having us here. You know, when I was a child, there was no such thing as an African American dentist. There was this didn't happen, and I'll tell you also, there were virtually no Indians or anyone from the subcontinent, anybody from Southeast Asia, and anybody who was African in the United States. And in fact, our laws barred people from those countries from coming into the United States in any numbers at all. Would allow 7 or 8 people from Gambia each year. And that law was changed by John F. Kennedy. And it wasn't enacted until after he died, but my uncle, Senator Ted Kennedy, pushed that through. And people used to say, "Why do you care so much about immigration?" And they'd say, "Senator, it's not getting you any votes. You're not getting anything out of this." And it's purely a question of fairness, purely a question of what we want to be as a country. And you look at this room, and it's completely different than it could even have looked when I was born. So then after that 65 Act, then Teddy had difficulty getting any other immigration changes made. But then when the Russians started really acting up, he thought, you know what, we can let in some Russian refugees. And once they started letting in Russians, they started having to let in refugees from all over the place. And then he thought, you know, it's completely unfair to have them escape from communism and be alone. So we're going to let their families in too. And that the philosophy of allowing the whole family here is absolutely vital and absolutely has to stay. The Senate cannot change that. And I assure you that when Christopher is governor, you're going to see a real change in this city and in the state. Thank you. And can I just, I think my wife was introduced earlier, but I want to introduce my wife, Vicki, who is so incredible. We spent Vicki's birthday a few days ago in Moline, Illinois, at the Democratic meeting. And we spent Valentine's Day at the DeKalb County, no, Downers Grove Democratic meeting. And Vicki said, never one word of complaint, and actually really grateful to meet new people, which is the really incredible thing that I'll just tell you one thing to keep in mind. When you see a candidate, look into their eyes when they're talking about issues, and you will be able to tell whether they care about the issues or the individual. And you want to vote for the one who cares and looks you in the eye and wants to know what makes you tick. Okay, thank you.
And can we also...
Sarah!
Yay!
Wait, Dr. Prabhaker! Dr. Prabhaker, come on! Come on here! Doctor! Everybody come on! Doctor! Sarah! Come, Chief! Come on!
Thank you, Max. I guess we're all here today for one reason. Of course, our Honorable Congressman Danny K. Davis and the godson who he groomed, Gerard. I think Gerard has a lot in common with Max just said. Because when he was a 10-year-old kid, he saw his father being stabbed right in front of his eyes. And ever since he heard about the Kennedy for Governor campaign, he lined us all up. And so I think we're all at the right place, the right moment. We have 30 days to go. We have to spread the word, get the word out there, and get the grassroots level people there. We're very happy that Chris could send his eldest daughter, Sarah, with us. Give her a big round of applause. Max has said Vicky is keeping us all together and making sure everything, I's are dotted and T's are dashed, and keeping the frogs together as the campaign is going on.
Vicky had just in the last 12 hours, Vicky had 32 emails with the chief.
And we also have, Max is quite accurate. We also have Dr. Mendes here, Mercedes Mendes, who's a psychiatrist from Chicago. We'd like Martinez, Dr. Martinez. We have Dr. Sriram Sosi, an ophthalmologist here. We have Dr. Abdul Kiswani representing the Middle Eastern community from the Centurion. We have Jamil Ahmed, who takes us around to the mosque. Jamil, where are you?
Yes, here.
Yeah, good. And then we have Myra, Kinjosa, and all the others, all part of Congressman Danny K. Davis's task force here. And because as Congressman said, though Pritzker has spent $50 million and Mo and Rana $90 million, but it's the Kennedy's family name and legacy, which we are all indebted to in so many ways. We have to keep this momentum going. Chicago and Illinois will never get another opportunity if we don't make this happen now. Right, Congressman?
You are so right.
And now for the closing remarks, I'll give it to Gerard Moore, because he's been preparing his text and speech. I think after he's done, give it up for Gerard Moore. Give it up for Gerard Moore.
I didn't really need that big welcome. I don't have much to say. I'm very excited about the Kennedy campaign for a lot of reasons, personal reasons and professional reasons. I think what he changed the whole trajectory of politics in Illinois. People won't be afraid to stand up anymore because they can understand we can stand up and we can still win. In our current situation, we have a lot of people who want to support, but they're scared if they support the consequences that come with that. And if we can win, other people will come along down the line and run for other offices and wouldn't mind being independent. But I think it started right here, and we can win and we can squeak this out. I think it'll change the trajectory of politics in Illinois from now on. So thank you all for coming out. Okay?
Congressman Danny Davis worked his magic. When Dorothy Brown ran for the clerk of the county, the Democratic machine did not endorse her, and she was by herself, but Congressman Danny Davis was the only person to endorse her, and she worked the trenches and the grassroots level throughout the Cook County. Though she had all the machinery against her, didn't have all the funding agencies, but she worked. She worked with churches, she worked with Congressman Danny Davis. She did 20 to 30 stops a day, and the result was seen by all. So I think because she had the name recognition to her advantage, but not as much as the Kennedys have. So I'm sure we can turn this election around with a little more hard work and getting the family members out there everywhere possible, groups of 10 to groups of 100. It can be done. We'll have the last word to our Venerable Congressman Davis.
Everything has basically been said. And people who know me well, know that I just love poetry. That is, whatever poets do, they can do it on one sheet of paper. And it might take a prose writer a book to convey the same message. And as I listened to Gerard, whom I've watched grow from the time that he was 11 or 12 years old, and to see the man that he has become and the environment that he has come from, I think of all the possibilities. And we actually celebrate this month. We celebrate Black History Month, which started off as a day, Negro History Day. Carter G. Woodson, Negro History Week. Frederick Douglass was kind of like my hero in terms of a philosophical vantage point from which to spring. And so I think what Gerard was saying to us is something that a poet said. He said that if you think you're beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you'd like to win but think you can't, it's almost a cinch you won't. If you think you'll lose, you've already lost. For out in the world we find success begins with the fellow's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can win the prize. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man. But sooner or late, Dr. Zenobia, the woman who wins. Thank you. Thank you all.
As we get close to the end, before the actual actually day of vote. If you haven't registered already, or if you haven't voted already, you can do that as well. But March 20th, we want everyone at the polls. We want your friends, your family, everyone that you know to endorse and to vote for Chris Kennedy. My office will be open if we need it. I've got 7 lines and everybody that brings a cell phone so we can use it. Make it away. Make the change that we need.
Yes.
On behalf of MEATF Group, I wanted to thank Dr. Zenobia for opening up this office for us, and it's a wonderful welcome and bringing such a long weekend to us for us to do all this wonderful spreads for us. Also, we wanted to thank Karen family, Max, Zara, and Vicky is on this side, I think. So thank you for coming, and we also wanted to thank all eminent guests who has, honored Dr. Zenobia's request, our request, and will be presented here. And we'd like to thank our MEATF group under Dr. Vijay Prabhakar's leadership. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate your support.
There's nothing like the multi-ethnic aspect. Yeah.
Everyone, I have no patience tomorrow, so stay as long as you want. Enjoy the food and each other.